Thank you. I really appreciate you being here early in the morning and to be willing to hear about how we can all work together to strengthen the industrial ecosystem. This is not a sales pitch. I don't want anybody to accuse me of that, but I have to tell you who Dragos is so you know where all of this is coming from. How many of you have heard of Dragos and know about Dragos? Oh, great. Okay, then I'll do this very quickly. Dragos is an industrial cybersecurity company, so we don't do IT security, just OT. Our mission is safeguarding civilization, which is why the topic is what it is today. We realize that the company really lives that mission. It's not just, oh, that looks good on paper. The company lives the mission. And we realize that if we believe in that mission, then we can't just help the big companies that can afford to buy our stuff. We need to help the smalls, the mediums who don't have the financial resources or the expertise to protect their OT environments. And yet, they're critical to our entire ecosystem, our critical infrastructure around the world. So that's what we're going to be talking about today is free stuff. And how many of you have OT environments? Okay, so you're going to leave here with access to free stuff. You can't beat that, right? So Dragos has a platform that we put in OT environments, and we have an OT threat intelligence team, which is the best in the world. And anything that they find that is happening out there, they bring back and it's built right into the platform. In addition, we have expert services that do incident response, risk assessments, pen testing, all in OT. And everything they find, they bring back and it's built into the platform. So the platform is dynamically changing based on what we're actually seeing out there. Just a little about me. I started out as a software engineer programming nuclear power plants at Westinghouse, went to Carnegie Mellon University, then the Software Engineering Institute, and then in 2001 started my security career at CERT. CERT is the very first cybersecurity organization in the world. And there I did cybersecurity research with my expertise being insider threat and critical infrastructure protection. Then Rockwell Automation came along. How many of you know who Rockwell is? Okay, you're OT people. Well, have OT environments, so I figured you would know who Rockwell is. So for those of you that don't, Rockwell Automation is an industrial control system vendor, an OEM, and they asked me to come and build their insider risk program, and then I ended up becoming the CISO. So as CISO at Rockwell, this was in 2016, right before WannaCry and NotPetya, right before people started realizing, oh, we really need to protect our OT, not just our IT. And so it was a fun, in quotes, challenging place to be because this was a whole new frontier that we had to figure out. How do you protect OT? And I didn't want to do it by myself, so I got a big, like 30-some CISOs from big Rockwell customers that were also trying to figure the same thing out, and we all kind of worked together and figured it out together. And then I retired in 2022 for less than 2 months. Then I came out of retirement to work at Dragos, and now I call myself the security fairy godmother, because I get to give things away for free. So what better post-retirement gig? The reason that this is so important to me is when I was at Rockwell, we started getting letters from our small and medium suppliers saying, we've been hit by ransomware, we have no idea how long it'll take to recover. It'll be at least a month before we can get you our product. And I realized, geez, this isn't a cybersecurity risk to Rockwell, but it's an operational risk to Rockwell. If we can't get products from critical suppliers, we might have to shut down our own plants. And so I started working with those suppliers, worked with our OT organization, got the list of the most critical suppliers, and started doing assessments and seeing, so where do they stand? And the large, some of them were okay. Remember, OT security was kind of new. The smalls and the mediums, they had nothing. They were lucky if they had IT security. So I became very passionate about somebody has to help these organizations. They're critical to our global economy, critical infrastructure, the entire ecosystem. So then Rob Lee, the CEO of Dragos, he said, you know, I keep hearing you say somebody has to do something about this. Well, why don't you do it? We want you to come and create OT CERT, which will provide free resources to small and medium businesses with OT environments. So that's how I got here. But I also was concerned about our customers because when a customer would get hit with ransomware, they didn't want the IT incident response team in their plans. They said they know nothing about OT. We want you, Rockwell, to help us because you understand OT. And just seeing what it's like to see a company be hit with ransomware and their OT environment is down, and trying to figure out how do we recover, especially a global company with plants around the world, that's what got me very passionate about this. So my goal here today is convince you that you should care too. Because, I mean, we're at RSA. We're supposed to be the leading edge here. And so we all should care. And I want to enlist your help. Just spread the word and use these free resources yourself to secure your own environments. And that way we can raise the posture of the entire ecosystem. So I think the first thing I need to do to convince you is to talk about what is the current cyber threat environment in OT and in small and medium businesses. So these, Dragos since 2017 has tracked unique threat groups. And you can see every year there are new threat groups. These are threat groups that are targeting OT. So, you know, if you read the security news every day, which I'm sure probably you do, if you don't, you should. But, you know, there are new threat groups in IT all the time. But in OT, it's a relatively small number, but new ones keep coming up. And we're going to talk about one in particular from 2023, VoltSite. We'll talk about that one in more detail. But before we get to that, let's look at the big picture. So we have nation states, we have Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Hamas, and this is just my personal opinion, but it's frustrating to me because Russia brought down the Ukraine power grid years ago, and they did it twice. And there was all this conversation about what if they do it to the US? What will we do? How will we react? Will this be considered an act of war? Well, we've basically crossed that line, and now we have nation states bringing down critical infrastructure. We have hacktivists impacting critical infrastructure, and I don't really see much being done about it. So, we have nation states, hacktivists, and the thing about the hacktivists, why are they doing this? And what's the impact? They're causing panic, and they're negatively impacting public perception of the resilience of these public services. I have a whole slide we're going to look at next on the hacktivist activity. And then we have China and Taiwan, and that's resulted in increased targeted cyber espionage attacks in Asia Pacific and the US. In particular, VoltSite, they've targeted numerous critical infrastructure entities in Guam, the US, and other countries since at least 2021. And I'm going to tell you a personal story about VoltSite in a minute. VoltSite is what we at Dragos call Volt Typhoon, which is the group that the US government has linked to the People's Republic of China. But before we get into that, we're still at the high level, then we'll go a little deeper. These are the hacktivist attacks that we saw in 2023. So in the past, hacktivist attacks were typically website defacements, DDoS attacks, very low level sophistication, and not a real big impact. But look at these. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but we have the Cyber Army of Russia Reborn, who has been attacking industrial organizations since May of 2023. They were allegedly the ones that brought down, I think it was 23 different power companies in Denmark at the same time in May. And just recently, how many have heard about the Cyber Army of Russia Reborn attacking the water utilities in Texas? Okay, some of you. So this was like 2 weeks ago. Actually, my OT Circ colleague was on CNN being interviewed about this. So the Cyber Army of Russia Reborn, I wish I had the video. There was a Wired magazine article, and they posted the videos that they were posting. So this hacktivist group posted videos of them hacking into these small water utilities in Texas. And the one video was set to the Super Mario Brothers music. So here they are, it's like taunting us. You know, they're the Super Mario Brothers music. And here they are. They're experimenting with different numbers to see, like, how high can I set this number? So they changed the threshold on a tank. It was set to, I think, 3, and they changed it to 999 because they figured out that was the highest they could go. Next thing you know, this gigantic water tank is overflowing in this town of Texas because they changed the configuration settings. They did it in 2 places in Texas, Indianapolis, and there were others, and I'm not sure which I can talk about publicly, but they're very active. And just a week or 2 ago, Google and Mandiant, Google/Mandiant, said that they are working with the nation state of Russia. So here's a new development. We have these hacktivists that used to be low-level sophistication. Now they're linked with the nation state of Russia. And they're taking action that's having more severe consequences. No Name 057, they attacked European and NATO organizations, and specifically they targeted manufacturing and transportation. Anonymous Sudan, they targeted US and NATO countries. Pro-Hamas, like the Cyber Avengers, we're going to talk about them separately, but they claimed disruptive attacks against Israeli railways, power grid, and hydroelectric plant. Predatory Sparrow allegedly brought down the gas stations in Iran. And the Cyber Avengers, we're going to talk about that one separately. So that's a lot. That's a big change. In OT, like the whole time I was at Rockwell, our big concern was ransomware because that was so prevalent. But now we have threats out there that we never thought that we would have to worry about, and there they are. But ransomware is still around. We track every ransomware attack there is against an organization, an industrial organization, and in 2023 they increased 50%. So ransomware is still out there and still impacting OT. So now let's talk about small and medium organizations. I'm just checking how I'm doing on time. So, VoltSite. So this is more of a personal story because Dragos was involved in this case. So there was a medium-sized water and electric company that implemented the Dragos platform, and they employed our threat hunters. And what we found was they had been compromised by VoltSite over 300 days earlier. And this is a medium company. It's not a major company like San Francisco Water. And what's scary is what they did. So first of all, a lot of times ransomware gets into IT and then it happens to get into OT because you haven't segmented your networks, and it just happens to get into OT. In this case, they deliberately, their target was OT. And once they got in, they didn't steal the usual information like PII and health information and customer information. What they stole was details on operational processes, configurations of OT assets, SCADA asset configurations, GIS data, and lists of critical customers. That one really concerns me because we have an OT CERT member. It's a medium-sized water utility. And the woman who's the OT CERT member just told us that one of their customers is a military base. And so the DOD came to them a few months ago and said, we need to look into your cybersecurity posture, because if your water facility is taken down, we have no water. You can't really have a military base with no water. So why did China steal the critical customer list of this medium-sized utility? They're very strategic. So when they're figuring out who should we go after, you would think they're going to look at who are the customers that would be impacted by this. So this is really scary to me. I'm not trying to be, spread FUD, fear, anxiety, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, but this is scary stuff. So then we knew what to look for. So now we know exactly what VoltSite did. Now we conducted hunts in all of our customers that allow us to conduct threat hunts, and Neighborhood Keeper, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. And we found other customers that had also been compromised and notified all of them. So the bottom line is they were focused on accessing and exfiltrating sensitive documents and data that are pivotal to the critical operations of this utility. So that's what's happening with VoltSite, nation state. Now let's talk about the Cyber Avengers. So how many of you heard about the Cyber Avengers attacking water utilities? Okay, not too many. This hit really close to home for me as well, because the first place that they attacked was a small water utility in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. I live in Pittsburgh. Aliquippa is right outside of Pittsburgh. It's a small rural area. And when I heard this Cyber Avengers attacked Aliquippa, why would they attack Aliquippa? Well, the reason was because they were using PLCs, Unitronics PLCs, which were manufactured in Israel, and this was a pro-Hamas hacktivist group. You can't really read that little red box there, but the message that they put up said, you have been hacked. Every equipment made in Israel is legal target of Cyber Avengers. So they not only attacked Aliquippa, they attacked, I've heard various numbers, but I'm saying around 12 other water utilities, as well as a brewery in Pittsburgh and in a water scheme in Ireland. And the one in Ireland resulted in 180 people having no running water for 2 days. So that's Cyber Avengers. But so this all happened right around Thanksgiving. Of course, if you're in security, you know that these things always happen around holidays. But at the beginning of the year, this year, CISA came out with the FBI, NSA, issued a joint bulletin saying the Cyber Avengers are working with the government of Iran. So we have Cyber Army of Russia Reborn working with Russia. We have the Cyber Avengers working with the government of Iran. It kind of gives these hacktivist groups don't have to worry about or policy issues like nation states do. They can go out and do the dirty work while having someone with more sophisticated skills and abilities and strategies working with them. Okay, so remember, all these things I'm talking about, they're happening to small and medium organizations. So let's look at ransomware. Trend Micro published a ransomware study last year, and they looked at all of the known ransomware attacks between November of 19 and June of 22. And they did a deep dive into Lockbit and Conti because they have the most victims. And they found that 69% of Conti's victims and 80% of Lockbit's had less than 500 employees. So you look at this and it feels like the big companies, like I know at Rockwell when ransomware became prevalent, we put a lot of money into securing ourselves against ransomware. But the small and the mediums, I think, you know, the ransomware groups, they're kind of throwing up their hands and saying, let's go after the little guys. We don't get as much in ransom, but we get more victims. And this is kind of like what I was talking about at the beginning, only this actually happened. A large semiconductor manufacturer came out last February, and they said they had taken a $250 million hit to their sales because of a cyber attack at one of their suppliers. And then the supplier came out and said that it cost them $200 million in revenue. So this is almost $500 million in revenue from this one ransomware attack against a supplier. So now let's get to the good part. Now we're gonna get a little more positive. So what can you do about it? So we have two different programs at Dragos. One is called the Community Defense Program. This is for utilities at risk, water, electric, and gas, small ones. But then we have Dragos OT CERT, which was formed to help small and medium organizations with OT environments by giving them resources that they can use to create an OT cybersecurity program. It's just kind of interesting to me to see who actually is a member of OT CERT. We have a lot of large companies. And I've talked to them and said, why are you using our stuff? Like, this is geared to small and medium organizations. And they said, we're getting a lot of value out of this. First of all, it's free. Secondly, it's really good stuff. So although the reason we're doing it is for small and mediums, no matter what your size, you should be joining OT CERT. So let's start by talking about CDP, Community Defense Program. Any small water, electric, or gas utility with under $100 million in revenue can join CDP for free. And I really urge you to try and spread the word about this because this is totally free. And what they get is they get our platform, they get our threat hunting, they get OT CERT, they get our educational materials, they get everything for free. All they need is the hardware to run it on. And I'm going to talk in more detail about what exactly they get. They get the platform, which gives them asset visibility, threat detection, and risk-based vulnerability management. They're a member of Neighborhood Keeper. Neighborhood Keeper was funded by the Department of Energy. It's a collective defense mechanism. So anyone who's a member of Neighborhood Keeper, any Dragos customer can opt in if they choose to. Your anonymized data goes into Neighborhood Keeper. We can't reverse engineer and figure out where the data came from. We did that deliberately. We don't want the FBI knocking on the door saying, you have to tell us who this organization is that has this threat. So we engineered it so it cannot be reverse engineered. So we get all this data. All we know is the sector that the organization is in and the region of the US. So think about that Cyber Avengers attack on the water utilities. If they had been in CDP and they had been in Neighborhood Keeper, the problem with a lot of these small utilities is even if we give this to them for free, the person that has to run it also cuts the grass. It's the IT guy, the security guy, the OT guy, and I'm not kidding, like literally, they cut the grass. So they can't really sit there and watch the dashboard. So this gives them someone else who has their back. So now Dragos has access, CISA has access, DOE, some of the ISACs. Someone else can see something's happening, and then through Neighborhood Keeper, we can push out a message and say, hey, you have a threat in your environment and other people do too. Why don't we get on the phone and talk? If you want to be invited to this 3 o'clock meeting, give us your email address. If they don't respond, we don't know who they are, so we can't help them. But it's a collective defense mechanism that will help, again, improve the ecosystem. We do threat hunting in their environments. They get membership in OT CERT, Dragos Academy, all of our training, and most importantly, they get software updates, knowledge pack updates for the rest of forever. So it's not like, ooh, join for free in year 1 and then we'll charge you for updates. That's not how it works. It's free forever. So that's it for CDP. Please help spread the word. Next, we'll talk about OT CERT. So OT CERT, we actually launched at RSA 2 years ago. And right now we have 43 resources, but 2 more are coming this week that are really important. We have almost 1,900 members in 64 countries. We put out free resources, and we keep putting them out on an ongoing basis. It's open to any organization that has an OT environment. We have like toolkits, guides, how-to videos, templates. I'm going to actually show you the portal so you can see what it looks like, because I think it's more fun to actually look at it than to hear about it. And then we have monthly working sessions, because we realize these are small organizations and they're scared, and this is all foreign to them. So we meet once a month, and this is my favorite day of the month because it's just so fun. Like to see these people coming and learning from each other and sharing information. So these are our resources. We're going to take a look at that in a minute, but I do just want to say we do use industry standards and frameworks. Our roadmap for our content is based on the SANS 5 critical controls for ICS security. We also align with many different standards, but what's different, because we keep looking and saying, are we reinventing the wheel? Are we doing something that's already out there? And what we find is all of these other standards and frameworks, they tell you what to do, but the difference with us is we give you the how. We give you the templates, the tools, the demonstration videos that you can just take and start to use right away. So now comes the scary part of my presentation. So I am going to defy Murphy's Law and try to do a live demo. So wish me luck. All right, so this is the portal. So when you come into OT CERT, oops, oh no, why did it do that? Come on, I practiced this like all morning to make sure everything was fine. Oh, okay, thank goodness, we're there. Oh, but you can't see it. Oh no. What do I do? Why is it not? Do I have to kill the PowerPoint maybe? There. Okay. All right. So, welcome to OT CERT. So we figure some people come in and they know what they're looking for. So if you know what you're looking for, there's a resources link. You can go there and you can search around. But we have this getting started page because a lot of people, especially small and mediums, they're going to come in and they're not going to know where to start. So we help them to get started. The first thing we have is a self-assessment instrument. So just go in and assess, like, where are you? What do you have? What don't you have? So we have the self-assessment itself and a guide. So I'm just going to show you the self-assessment real quick. And it's a spreadsheet. It's nothing fancy. It's based on C2M2, but it's applicable to all sectors. So we have the category, the description, and then over on the right-hand side, we have all of the different practices that you should be doing, and then you just select, do we do this or not? It's a simple applies. Oop, I have to enable editing. It's a simple applies or does not apply, yes or no. It's not a maturity model. We're just trying to help small organizations to get a feel for where they are. And then we have the results summary where you get a nice graph and you can look at what percentage complete are we for each of these practices. And then you can use this to create your strategic roadmap for, okay, so what are we going to do this year? And of course, OT CERT is giving them resources for all of those different practices. So let's go back to getting started. The next thing that we have is Asset Management Toolkit. I'm not going to show you that, but it's a spreadsheet and a guide and a video that tells you how do you create an asset inventory in your plants. And you know, a spreadsheet that might sound, oh, it's so mundane, so easy. But you know what? When I became CISO at Rockwell, that's what we had. We had spreadsheets in every plant where they tried to keep an up-to-date inventory of what we had. We have introductory course modules. For incident response, we start with a self-service tabletop exercise. So you can go out, you can pay a company, you can pay Dragos to come in and do a tabletop for you, but OT CERT gives it to you for free. So we have the tabletop exercise itself, and we have a facilitator's toolkit, and it looks just like a tabletop if you paid someone to come in and run one for you. I'm surprised it's taking that long to download a PowerPoint, but so it tells you, gives you an introduction, why is this important, talks about OT CERT, what is a tabletop, what are the objectives, how do you run it, what are the roles that you need, here are the guidelines, here's the scenario, describes the scenario, inject one, here's inject one, here's what happened, now take 15 minutes and discuss these questions, and then you have inject two, and so on. So this is free. You can just take this and run this in your organization. And then once you run that tabletop, now you can go in and you can create your incident response plan. Because now you know what you played through that tabletop, and now you can think about, so how would we react in a real incident? And here you notice, we probably might not be able to read it, but we have February and January working session tips and tricks. So in those monthly working sessions, they're very interactive, and OT CERT members are sharing like, hey, we did this tabletop and we feel like we should have included these people and we didn't. You know, they just share tips and tricks. So we capture them and make them available to members. But then we have the cyber incident response plan for OT. We have a guide, and then we have a worksheet. The worksheet is basically just a bunch of tables. So in the worksheet, we have who are your incident response team members, what's their contact information. We have who are all of the vendors and service providers that you need to call if you're hit with a cyber attack in OT. You can see the bullets. You probably can't read them, but there's a pretty long list. Because if you get hit, I know we have Rockwell equipment, but we haven't bought anything for 10 years. I have no idea who we call to get Rockwell to help us. Then we have communications, regulatory bodies. Who do you have to notify? How long do you have? How do you notify them? Do we have any law enforcement contacts that we work with? This to me is a really important one. What customers do we have with contractual reporting requirements? That was a big one at Rockwell. Like, we had a lot of customers, and trying to track all the customers and the reporting time frame and how do you contact them was really difficult. So you get the idea. That's the incident response plan. I want to save time for questions at the end, but I do want to show you, we have videos. I'm not going to show you a video because I'm going to give you a sneak peek at some new resources we're putting out this week. But we have security log management, secure remote access, and MFA. We spent 9 months on those materials. We have a video with a Dragos pen tester where he describes what he does to try and get into an organization. So these are things that you need to think about, like, oh, is my secure remote access and my MFA, do I have it configured so that he couldn't get in? Our videos are they make it so easy. We call them demonstration videos. I want to show you one, but I want to make sure I get to these new resources. It's like, click here, type this, check these boxes. It's like step by step. You could hand these videos to a high school kid and they could go in and they could set up your logs. Because one of the things that we find out when we go in to do incident response is a lot of people have no logs. And if you don't have logs, then we can't figure out what happened, how it happened, and of course, how to make sure it can't happen again. We have the collection management framework. That's one of our toolkits. That was done by Leslie Carhart. A lot of you probably recognize that name. Leslie Carhart is like one of the most well-known OT incident responders in the world, and she created this. You can watch a video with Leslie Carhart showing you how to use this CMF template that we give you for free so that you have good logs if you need them. Then we have system hardening, defensible architecture, network segmentation, part 1, part 2 is coming, it's on the way. But what I want to talk to you about is what we're putting out this week. What we've been seeing, the Cyber Avengers, the Cyber Army of Russia Reborn, the things that they're targeting are default passwords and internet-connected devices. So we thought we need to get a resource out on this because once again, like CISA, I love CISA, by the way. I love CISA. Dawn, are you still in here? I think you might have left. Ah, there you are. I think CISA is great. But they just put out this advisory last week, and it said, you need to make sure that you change default passwords and make sure that you harden or don't have your devices connected to the internet. So I looked at that and thought, okay, that sounds kind of okay, of course. But how do you do that? So we got Reed Whiteman, who, I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he's like one of the gods of reverse engineering malware and vulnerability analysis. He is so, so smart. He's the one that when you hear about a new type of malware that Dragos analyzed, it's Reed that does it. So to get him to create this document, like, so Reed, can you tell us, like, how do you do this? And so he goes in and talks about the trends. He talks about default passwords and common passwords, and what kind of devices you need to check. PLCs, safety controllers, panel PLCs, embedded HMIs. He tells you all of the things you need to check, the different protocols that you need to think about, the default credentials, like all the different kinds, where to go out and find the default passwords. I mean, this is like, I'm so excited about this. And the fact that it's coming out this week, this is like a resource that if you have an OT environment, you should join OT Cert just to get this. And the other thing that we did was, Reed came to our working session last week and we gave a preview of this to our OT Cert members. And so I recorded it because I thought, man, there's nothing like hearing it instead of reading it. So Reed is the guy up in the upper left. He's like Mr. Superhero. He's the one that wrote this resource. And so he talks about this for how long? 47 minutes. And so you can hear it right from the expert about how to do this. So I'm very excited about that. And I am like perfect timing. I wanted to leave 10 minutes for Q&A. So let me just go to my last slides real quick. You can even see them. So what can you do to join the mission? First of all, if you qualify for CDP or OT cert, join. So you can go to dragos.com/OT-cert or dragos.com/community-defense-program. No matter what, please help us spread the word. We all need to get the word out. In addition, over the next few months, if you have a robust OT cybersecurity program, start looking out for your suppliers. Think about your critical suppliers and assess their OT cybersecurity posture. And don't forget about your service providers, because a lot of times, I can tell you, Rockwell engineers walking into a customer site with an infected USB drive, that was an extremely hard risk that a lot of time into when I was the CISO at Rockwell. You need to think about your service providers. Make sure they understand OT cybersecurity and that they apply best practices and standards. They can join OT Cert. They need to understand this stuff. Encourage or require that they join. Remind them that OT cybersecurity is good for business. This is a competitive advantage, because more and more big companies are looking at their suppliers to make sure that they have a good cybersecurity program. So tell them that. This is good for your company. And if you have any other ideas, please contact me, because I really need your help. So defense is doable, and together we can safeguard civilization. And with that, I will open it up for Q&A. And if you don't have any, I'm going to feel really bad. So please, somebody ask me something.
I got you on, Don. Thanks. Thanks for your time today. I'm a senior engineer at a company that's ancillary to OT, but not in OT. And I heard you say small and medium businesses don't have IT, much less OT security. I listened to Director Ray at Vanderbilt this week drum on about China, right? I want to help. I want to do this, right? I'm super interested. I have peers who are super interested. Where are the jobs and how do we get them? How do we protect Aliquippa? How do we protect, I'm in rural Tennessee, TVAs, smaller instances and those kind of things?
So we're working with some of the states, because the state governments are realizing, especially in a state like Tennessee, about how many rural utilities we have. And so I would say we have to get the word out, first of all. And because this small utility, they're not going to hire you, because they need an IT security and cut the grass guy, and that's probably not what you want to do. But I would say contact me, because we've been putting together this community advisor program right now it's Dragos customers that want to be part of CDP and help those CDP participants. They want to be a part of this. So I'd like to talk to you so we can, let's figure it out. Let's put our heads together and figure it out.
Absolutely, thank you.
Hi, Don. Jeff Brancato, Northeast Ohio Cyber Consortium. Good to see you again.
Yeah.
I will be talking with you afterwards as well, because I'm working with the governor's office as well as the NERC regional organization that covers Northeast U.S. But can you talk more broadly about building the coalition of the willing? And I'm thinking more around small and medium-sized manufacturers for OT cert, because one of the things that I've heard with the companies that I interact with that are on the smaller side is that when they think about business risk, cybersecurity does not really rise to the top because there are so many other risks.
Right.
So, for example, the MEP Center in Cleveland says our clients are not asking for this. Mm-hmm. You know, they're not saying this is a high priority for us, so please give it to us. So how do we get the word out, and how do we build a stronger sense of urgency and need to take advantage of these opportunities?
That's why I'm here today, because I totally agree with you. They don't know what the risk is. They think who would ever attack me? Like, why would anybody attack me? But then you see those ransomware statistics, like that's who they're going after, is small businesses. And why did they go after them? Because they pay, because they can't recover if they don't pay. But they don't know it. And so to me, the hardest part of my job is trying to figure that out. And I think we need, as a community, to get that word out. But you can't just like spread fear, uncertainty, and doubt. You have to give them the good news too. Like, hey, the good news is we have free things that will help you. And we meet with you every month. We have this neat community that we've formed where you'll be with your peers. So I think we just have to get that word out.
Hey, Dawn. Thank you very much. Matthew Kosnick with Eaton. Admittedly, I focus a lot in critical manufacturing, but I am from Aliquippa, Pennsylvania.
Oh.
So you had mentioned Aliquippa Water Authority, and I can remember Thanksgiving dinner very well that day.
Oh, you were there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But my question is I was wondering if you could touch on maybe the role of federal government in all of this. I think recently they just, I think it was the NSA, it may have been CISA, I can't remember, released a letter to state governments and governors telling them they need to act. And I believe that they all owe plans by June 28th in terms of what they're going to do. But I mean, I love these sessions, and I'm passionate about cybersecurity, but it's my belief that at some point the federal government's going to have to nudge us a little bit more, kind of like I think someone had mentioned NERC, which obviously the energy utility has a lot more oomph to it.
Yeah, I mean, different agencies, there's regulations, so the regulatory agencies have some power, but like CISA, so I said I love CISA, well, so you were in Aliquippa, so you're right in my neck of the woods, but our local CISA, the cybersecurity advisors that CISA has in all of the regions across the United States, I've found them to be excellent because they know these people. They knew Aliquippa Water. They could knock on the door and say, hey, what's going on here? We have the FBI with us. We have Dragos with us. They got Dragos involved because we said we'll help them for free. And so I think the grassroots, I think that's a good model because just like the gentleman from Ohio said, we need people that are out there, I think more than the federal level, giving edicts and regulations. I love this the local model. And so I think we need to go both ways. But the local model, to me, is really working because our Pittsburgh guy, he gets me in front of, utilities and different groups, and then he has his network of all of the other CISA advisors, and then he says, hey, you should have Dawn come talk to your people because it's free. The government has to be careful. They can't push a private company and say, hey, look at Dragos, but it's free, so it's a little different. Dee Dee.
Hey, Dawn, thank you so much. So I'm Dee Dee Budiharto, former CISO for multiple oil and gas companies. Now I'm a fractional CISO with oil and gas companies, my client as well. What I've seen in the past is when internal CISO being the owners and operators, the struggles that we had was, we still do, the coordination between OEM, government, someone mentioned that, and the owners operators. Now, we are starting with, especially in the downstream and the midstream with the TSA directives, to get that regulations. But the penalty is on the owners operators for not meeting the compliance. Yet, when we meet with the OEMs, they not necessarily have those capabilities matched with the requirements, and the government tells us to be compliant. So adding on, would Dragos be expanding that kind of coordination and collaboration so the three of us can actually play in the sandbox nicely?
Well, I think CISA has their Build Security In initiative. I think that's what it's called. Like to push the OEMs because they need to create secure products. Correct. And in my opinion, they need to provide secure services. And that's what CISA's pushing. I say from an owner and operator perspective, I would say when you're choosing a product, an OEM, a service provider, you should look at, like I said on the slide, do they understand cybersecurity? Rockwell Rockwell and their competitors invest so much money into IEC 62443 certifications, and it really means something. It does. If they have 62443 certifications, they went to a lot of work to get that, and they have to maintain it. So that's something I would look for. But as far as pulling them together, let's figure it out.
Okay, thank you. Well done.
Okay, I think we're getting kicked out. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
yes.